What's up, everybody? It's Jared with Capture the Magic. And of course, a lot of the topic lately around Epic Universe has been around the tragic incident that happened at Stardust Racers, where a guest passed away while on the attraction. It was shut down for a few weeks. Then over the weekend, Universal announced they're reopening it, and it did reopen Saturday evening around 7 o'clock. And along with that, they also updated some of the safety guidelines for not only Stardust Racers, but many other roller coasters at Universal. But of course, we were expecting a response from the victim's family's lawyer, which is Ben Crump, as he has been doing a press conference every Monday the past few weeks since this incident has happened. And he had another one today, and it was a little fiery, I guess you could say, and even some more accusations. So we're going to take a look at what he said here and see if there's anything new in terms of what they're claiming happened at Epic Universe when Kevin Rodriguez Zavala passed away. And I'll just state again, as I've done on all these videos, as this is not a fun topic to talk about at all, and I have extreme sympathy and condolences to his family. I can't even imagine what they're going through. So a lot of the things that are being accused, I suppose, on their side, seemingly coming from Ben Crump, I'm not really putting any ire toward the family, because they're going through they're grieving. They're going through a very difficult and terrible time. So I just want to always make that clear. It's a terrible tragedy that somebody died on a ride at a theme park, and his family is dealing with the aftermath of that. So it at least in my perspective, whatever response is to what Ben Crump is claiming, to me at least, I'm going to point those toward Ben Crump. So this is from News 6 in Orlando, and the quote is, "Slap in the face. Attorney family of man who died after riding Stardust Racers condemns the reopening of the attraction." Now, we did get a statement from Ben Crump the same day that Karen Irwin released a statement basically saying that, we've done our investigation. They've had 4 different groups of teams look at Stardust Racers. All of them came away saying that the ride operated as it was supposed to. And then when it was announced that it reopened, Ben Crump released a statement essentially saying that this was essentially saying that if Universal and Stardust Racers passed all of the ride specifications, they found nothing wrong with it, that the ride itself is just unsafe. So basically alluding to the fact that even if, they had 4 different independent groups look at this, saying that nothing happened on the ride in terms of outside of how it was supposed to operate, Ben Crump saying that their team was not allowed to look at it yet, and then basically claiming that the ride is unsafe and essentially saying if they don't shut it back down, they're going to file a lawsuit. So that brings us basically where we are today as of Monday. It says the family of a 32-year-old man who died after riding Stardust Racers roller coaster at Epic Universe condemned Universal Orlando's decision to reopen the attraction. Prominent civil rights lawyer Ben Crump was joined by Kevin Rodriguez Zavala's family members for a news conference on Monday to discuss Universal Orlando's decision to reopen the ride. Rodriguez Zavala died on September 17th of multiple blunt impact injuries. Also said, if that was your child, what message did Universal just send to this family? It was a slap in the face to them, he said. Crump also called for the release of video, ride data, and more to understand the circumstances that led to Rodriguez Zavala's death last month. He said, despite Universal Orlando's president saying safety was at the forefront after the man's death, these words ring out hollow. He says, quote, "These words ring out hollow in light of you reopening the Stardust coaster this weekend without giving Kevin's family any answers whatsoever to why he was killed on your roller coaster," he said. I have a feeling that's not accurate. I'm going to assume that they've been in contact with authorities on some level that at least have been able to probably say more than likely what it looks like, what happened here. It's my guess. Obviously, I don't know. But having known some police officers, I think a lot of times things are, relayed to family members that have questions. I think what you're seeing here is Ben Crump, who is, again, I don't know a lot about Ben Crump. I've learned a lot in the past couple of weeks. A lot of people in the comments have had not high regard for him, nor online. Ambulance chaser has been thrown out there. He has very, I guess you could just say, questionable tactics in many ways, making a lot of claims, many outlandish ones. The ride was closed for a couple weeks until Universal Orlando president and COO Karen Irwin sent a letter to staff on Friday that the ride would reopen the following day after a comprehensive technical and operational review confirmed the ride systems functioned properly. She had previously said in an internal letter following the man's death that the ride functioned, quote, as intended, and that the equipment was intact when the ride started, throughout the ride, and when it returned to the station. And we do have some more video here from Orlando Theme Park Zone, and they had another moment here where Ben Crump tears up the memo that Karen Irwin sent to Universal team members.
We are going to live up to our words. These words that safety is and always will be at the forefront of everything we do. That's what Kevin's family think when you put those words on writing. It doesn't mean anything if your actions don't match your words, Universal.
One thing to note, again, this is a brand new theme park, a brand new roller coaster. They have sensors all over this ride. I know they have sensors on each individual seat that they can look at the ride data and see if there was anything out of the ordinary, if it went too fast, the G-forces. So they're able to go back and look at this and not only do, testing now, but they can actually see on the ride itself that evening what the data looked like. And I think, again, you've had 4 different teams go through and look at this, and nothing sticks out in terms of anything different from this ride as of the thousands of other ones that this ride has, run guests through. And I think this is what you're getting is basically they're saying that the ride didn't perform any different than it did the month before, the ride before it, or even now since the ride's back open. It has performed basically exactly as it was intended and expected to. And I think that's why they're very confident in saying what they've been saying. Crump said during a news conference last week that his team was conducting an independent investigation. However, Crump said the ride reopened before his experts could inspect the coaster. When asked why he didn't try to get an injunction, which would be a good point, a good question, Crump replied, because we trusted Universal. Which is interesting because essentially they've been accusing Universal of running an unsafe theme park. They've also accused the team members of not responding properly. They've made a lot of accusations. They've even said team members helped him onto the attraction. I don't think what he's been saying the last few weeks, at least to me, does not seem like that it is portraying a situation where they trust Universal. So that's a very interesting answer to that question. He said, quote, we trusted Universal, and like Kevin, trust was betrayed. Apparently ours was too. We thought our experts were going to get to investigate before that they opened back up. They told us they were going to do that, he said. But the thing is, well, first off, he's if you pay attention to how Crump angles these things, he uses a lot of emotions here. So he's bringing Kevin's name into this, and that Kevin's trust was betrayed and he died on this, and their trust along with it was betrayed. But they announced they were going to reopen it the day before it reopened. It's not like they basically said, hey, we're reopening it within 30 minutes. So if he wanted to file an injunction, he had time to do so. Well, I would assume. As far as I know, I don't believe that there was anything that would have stopped him from trying to file one. So he's angling this as if it was just a surprise thing, but there was a warning ahead of time that this was going to reopen the day before that it did. And it didn't reopen until 7 o'clock the next day. I think a lot of that was due to weather. But it's not like it opened first thing in the morning either. So it was closed, or at least testing in the earlier part of the day, before it officially opened to the public. A medical examiner determined that Rodriguez Zavala suffered multiple blunt impact injuries, as well as that his death was an accident. Further, an incident report obtained by News 6 states Rodriguez Zavala had a pre-existing spinal injury, though it's unclear whether that contributed. I don't think that's really unclear, but technically under the investigation hasn't deemed it quite yet. But if you're looking at the whole situation here, if the ride functioned as it was supposed to, there's thousands of people that have ridden this attraction. There were warnings saying that if you have back injuries, neck injuries, heart issues, to not ride this attraction. The warnings were there, and the only difference here at all, if anything, if you look at the outlier here, it was that, unfortunately, Kevin Rodriguez Zavala rode this attraction being a paraplegic, and I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to put 2 and 2 together there to think that, that is the ultimate cause of this, because nobody else on that ride that night either had any injuries. It was just the victim here that had that issue. He's also said, and I get it, they keep saying over and over again, but there were no malfunctions. That doesn't mean that there were no safety issues, Crump said. When Stardust Racers reopened on Saturday, the safety and accessibility guides for Epic Universe and its sister Central Florida theme parks were updated. Prior to the death, the Epic Universe safety guide for Stardust Racers said it was not for guests with back, neck, or similar physical conditions. That still exist in the updated guide. So probably in the most interesting clip, I guess you could say, out of the press conference was this one, and this is from Ride Rover, who has a clip of this. They didn't actually have it in the news article, which I don't know why they quoted it, but Ben Crump is asked directly if Kevin Zavala had a pre-existing heart, back, or neck condition that would disqualify him from riding Stardust Racers to begin with, as again, it said on the warnings that this ride was not for people with heart, back, or neck conditions. And if you are paralyzed, if you have a spinal cord injury, that would qualify as having a back injury. I think basically anybody would simply state that that is the case. And his response to this was interesting.
But you mean, he was fine. He was disabled, but he was.
That's what the ride sign says.
No.
Can I answer that? The fact that.
So she has to step in because he's saying no. To the question, did he have a pre-existing back, neck, or heart issue? They're all saying no. But again, he was paralyzed. Like, obviously, that is going to be a back injury, which I found it interesting that she stepped in for him at this point.
People are asking that, and knowing that he was in a wheelchair, that means that was so vague that it was not a clear warning. So whether or not, he did not have any ongoing pain or anything like that. He had a lifelong spinal disorder.
The signage doesn't say anything about pain. It says if you have an injury. So she's twisting this now to say that he wasn't experiencing any pain, but this is how they're twisting it now. And she's kind of rewording this for Crump.
Disease and disorder that was lifelong that he lived with. So there was nothing about being able to walk. There was nothing about being in a wheelchair.
So that was an interesting little exchange. So essentially, again, to the question about did he have a back, neck, or similar physical condition issue, Crump says no, and they're going on talking about he was not in pain. So we can see here, this is the updated ride warnings, but they didn't take anything away. They just added to this. So it says on the ride warnings, when it comes to Stardust Racers, it says, do not ride if you have any of the following conditions. It doesn't say you're advised not to ride, by the way. It says do not ride if you have any of the following conditions: heart conditions or abnormal blood pressure, unhealed surgery or fractures, expectant mothers, motion sickness or dizziness, medical sensitivity to fog effects, back, neck, or similar physical conditions. It doesn't say anything about pain, which is an interesting way that the other attorney tried to turn it and say that he was never in pain. He didn't have back pain. That's not what the ride warning says. If you are paralyzed with a spinal cord injury, obviously that is a back and or neck issue. I don't think this would hold up in court, but I guess it might depend on the court or the judge that you get potentially. Then they have added weakened bones or muscles, and I believe, again, that is probably a lot to do with what's going to come out in the final report, and also inability to independently maintain an upright position, which also was something that more than likely was a factor in this. And for a better take on this, I would go check out Fire Medic Adventure 17. He did, I know original video here was this one right here, Stardust Racers, What Happened. He's actually an EMT, and he breaks it down really well in depth from his experience as to, and I'll just summarize, but go check out his video. But he basically says, if you look at the pictures, he was in a wheelchair. He was strapped into the wheelchair because he's a paraplegic. And many times they're strapped in because, and he even said, if you undo the strap, a lot of times they tend to fall forward. So they have a hard time maintaining an upright posture. So not only was the back injury something that the warning was not heeded, but also the ability to maintain an upright position. I do also believe, at least in my opinion, from what we know now, that is going to be another thing that they'll probably list as a factor in terms of the unfortunate death here that happened. And also in previous press conferences, Ben Crump has accused Universal team members of helping Kevin Rodriguez Zavala onto the ride, which, again, I've said in many different videos, goes against everything that Universal team members are trained to do. I've had many of them reach out to me and say that they do not believe for a moment that a team member would risk their job to help somebody onto an attraction, because you would be immediately fired. And I had said the whole time I never believed that that was the case. And I think we got a little clarification here of what he's alluding to when he is making this statement here. He said, quote, "When Kevin was provided a transfer seat by Universal employees and allowed on the Stardust Racers roller coaster, Kevin believed he was safe. He believed that because of Universal's actions, they were telling him he was safe," he said. So Universal team members are allowed to offer you a transfer seat, but they couldn't actually physically help you onto the attraction. That is something that they can do. Then they still can offer you a transfer seat in this new protocol, but you still have to walk independently on your own from that transfer seat onto the ride vehicle. So essentially, they're saying that Universal team members helped him onto the attraction, and by saying that they offered him a transfer seat, which is not the case here. It's not somebody physically helping him onto the attraction. I mean, I don't even think Universal team members can like hold your wheelchair. I think basically they can give you the transfer seat, and that's essentially all they're able to do. So that seems to be what they're implying here, is that is their whole thing of saying the Universal team members helped him onto the attraction. So I don't think that would hold up if this went to court, if I were to guess. But again, I'm not a lawyer. So basically, that was a press conference. It was kind of what I expected it to be, which was some theatrics. And first off, the whole thing's incredibly sad that a man went to a theme park, died while on an attraction, and obviously his family's left with the aftermath of that. They want answers. They're in grieving. Like I have complete, deepest sympathy for his family and what they're going through. But I feel like with Ben Crump here, it's turning into a spectacle. And now it's that we're going to tear up paper, and we're going to say that Universal is running unsafe attractions, and it's a slap in the face. We're going to use emotional, language here and saying Universal failed Kevin. And also all the way that he's doing this is not surprising in terms of what I've learned of Ben Crump and how he's behaving in this. What's interesting, though, is he threatened a lawsuit Saturday, I believe, because the ride opened on Sunday, but there has yet to be any lawsuit filed. And then, a reporter asked, why did you not get an injunction once they announced they were going to open it? And they basically said, well, because they surprised us and they told us they weren't going to do that. But you had 24 hours that you could have filed an injunction that seemingly you could have done. And it's interesting because I kind of lean toward the fact that this is all he's doing is trying to be a thorn in Universal's side with all of this to drive it toward a settlement. Because I just think if you're going to come out of this, if I'm looking at this from, if the report of the investigation comes out, and it's very likely seems to be that they're going to state that the ride performed as it was intended, that Kevin Rodriguez Zavala had a spinal cord injury, the language about the muscle loss or lack of muscle and the bone, weak bones, is kind of an indicator to me that that's probably what the report's also going to show, and that's what contributed to the death or was the main cause of the death here. I don't know how much I don't know if this could even go to court. So now Ben Crump's team is trying to basically dissect the ride warnings as if it said if you have back pain or neck pain. So if you're looking at this just from taking the emotions out of this, which again, it's a very sad situation, but if you just look at this from the facts itself, the ride warnings are there. The ride functioned as it was supposed to in terms of nothing strange happened that night with the ride. No, there was no, it didn't go too fast. It didn't have any, all of a sudden the G-forces were higher than it was supposed to be, or something went wrong in that particular seat. Because again, they have sensors on every single seat of this ride. The coaster itself didn't perform any differently than it has previously or as it is right now. The only different factor you have here is a guest that should have heeded the ride warnings and did not. And unfortunately, that led to a very tragic outcome here. And I think that is what the investigation is going to end up showing and saying. I'm very curious what Universal's strategy with this will be. Like, will they, if they don't file a lawsuit, does Ben Crump just eventually tire out, or does he keep doing these press conferences every single week, basically bring this up and up again? That's going to be interesting to see, because I don't know. I mean, at this point, I think most people understand what happened here. There are some people online that are claiming that Universal doesn't follow safety or they don't care about safety. It's profits over safety and things like that. But Universal would be taking an unimaginable risk to reopen this ride if there was any chance that this report was going to come back and say something happened in terms of the ride malfunctioning on here. And Universal has very good lawyers of their own, as does, say, Disney World. And so it doesn't really matter if this is Universal or Disney. They take safety very seriously. And it's in their best interest to take safety very seriously, because obviously, if you had a lot of these incidents happen, look at this one right here, how much attention this has gotten. Obviously, that's not going to be good for your brand if people feel unsafe riding your attractions or going to your theme parks. So they have all of the motivation to make sure that their rides are safe, that they're following all the protocols, all the code, and all the safety standards out there. So I don't believe that Universal is running an unsafe theme park. I don't believe that Disney World is either. And these accusations, I think, are probably, for the most part, I think the public looks at this, you look at the details here, and it's not really hard to put this together in terms of what likely happened here. Of course, we still don't know. We still don't have the investigation report. This is just speculation, but I'm sure this won't be the end of this. I'm sure we'll hear more about this, and there's still the investigation that's going to have their final report in terms of all of the details and the final I guess you could say, conclusion as to what happened here. But whenever we do have more information on this, I will let you know on here on this channel. But for now, that is going to be it, though, for this video. So if you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think about all this? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.